How much of London can you really experience in one day? Today we're attempting an epic itinerary through some of the city's most famous landmarks, royal traditions, historic sites, and neighborhoods. From Big Ben and Buckingham Palace to the changing of the guard, crown jewels, Tower Bridge, a cruise down the River Thames, and the Phantom of the Opera in the West End, this might be our biggest UK adventure day yet. It's day 7 of our UK adventure, and after getting our first glimpse of London by night yesterday, we're heading back into the heart of the city for a full day of exploring London on foot, by boat, and eventually from a seat inside one of the West End's most famous theaters. We start along the River Thames at the London Eye before crossing into Westminster, where some of London's most recognizable landmarks are packed into just a few blocks. We walk past Big Ben and the House of Parliament before exploring Parliament Square, seeing statues of Winston Churchill, Mahatma Gandhi, Millicent Garrett Fawcett, and other historic figures. From there, we pass St. Margaret's Church and Westminster Abbey before continuing into beautiful St. James's Park. But we're here at this particular time for a reason. We're trying to experience several of London's famous Royal Guard ceremonies in one morning. First, we position ourselves along the Mall to watch the Old Guard leave St. James's Palace and march toward Buckingham Palace. We then make our way toward Wellington Barracks to catch the New Guard procession before crossing St. James's Park for another British tradition, the changing of the King's Lifeguard at Horse Guards Parade. Experiencing the processions from several different locations gives us a completely different perspective on one of London's most famous ceremonies. Then our walking tour continues. We pass the Royal Marines Memorial and Admiralty Arch before entering Trafalgar Square and seeing Nelson's Column. From there, we make our way towards Seven Dials Market for lunch and a break before tackling one of the most historic attractions in London. Next stop, the Tower of London. With nearly 1,000 years of history behind its walls, the tower has served as a royal palace, fortress, prison, execution site, armory, treasury, and home of the crown jewels. We begin with a Yeoman warder tour to hear some of the tower's stories before heading out on our own to explore the crown jewels, famous ravens, Tower Green, White Tower, medieval palace, battlements, St. John's Chapel, historic armor, and more. And our view of London is about to change again. From Tower Bridge Quay, we board a boat for a cruise along the River Thames, experiencing the city from the water, before returning to explore around the Tower of London and walking onto iconic Tower Bridge. By this point, we've walked through centuries of British history, but our day still isn't finished. We head back to our rental, clean up, change clothes, and make our way into London's legendary West End Theatre District for the perfect finale to an incredible day. Tonight, we're seeing the Phantom of the Opera at His Majesty's Theatre. After a day filled with royal palaces, historic towers, famous landmarks, crown jewels, guards, bridges, and the River Thames, sitting inside a historic West End theater for one of the world's most famous musicals feels like the perfect way to end our ultimate day in London. If you're planning your first trip to London and want to experience as much as possible, save this itinerary. It combines many of London's must-see landmarks with royal traditions, British history, a Thames cruise, great food, and a night in the West End, all in one very full day. And we can't wait to share it all with you. Day 7 starts now. It's our full day in London today. So we did the night bus last night, came back, tried to get stuff situated today. So today we are just doing our own little walking tour of London. Josh has done all the research and have so many places to go. So first we're gonna go to Parliament, Big Ben, Westminster, see what there is to see. And there's our ride. We took an Uber We're right here by the Eye, and we're gonna walk across the pier to Westminster, or across the bridge to Westminster. Yeah, see, Hiram? There are 33 sections of the Eye, but only 32 pods, which stands for the 32 boroughs of London. Also, section number 13 is empty because 13 is unlucky, if I remember correctly. So there's an empty one up there.
Hi guys.
Hi.
What's behind you over there?
Parliament and Big Ben, which we also learned is actually Elizabeth's Tower. Big Ben is the name of the largest bell in the tower. It hadn't been named and everyone just started calling it Big Ben. Then it was named officially, I think, on Silver Jubilee, something like that. Anyway, could look up the info to be accurate, but it was officially named the Elizabeth Tower, but everyone calls it Big Ben. So Big Ben is actually not the tower itself, but the biggest bell, the largest bell. She's not a separate jet, she's a separate Jeep.
The Big Ben in the background, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they said that no people.
And I'm like, but it's like you look from the sky. If you look at like the aerial view, it's amazing. Funerals.
Here, have a stand right here.
Like skydiving or when like.
Ils ont des têtes, on dirait des micros.
Anglais, mais...
C'était Aaron et tout, ils étaient y allés ici par hasard, ils avaient vu la reine et tout passer en... je sais plus quoi. Il l'avait dit. Ouais, c'est un tombeau.
So we found a viewing spot and we watched the old guard leaving, and then we went across the park and we watched the new guard coming in, and they meet in the middle at Buckingham Palace and they go in. But the cool thing is you can go in to the gates and you can watch the ceremony of the actual changing of the guard, but then you end up in a crowd full of people and you can't really see. So thanks to a lovely blogger, we found spots to just watch the exchange itself. Which is pretty cool. Pretty awesome.
So the squirrels and pigeons and ducks and geese.
And hired himself. Squirrel, 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 pigeon, pigeon, squirrel.
What do you guys think?
Don't
Pretty cool?
feed them. Yes, very cool.
I think that one is dead if
No.
it's heavy.
She put her head in the... No. Really cool experience.
Now we're gonna cross the Blue Bridge to the other side of the park. Just cramming things in. We're gonna see a lot of London here
Well, you can
on this
only
walking
see
tour.
London in one day. I mean, we saw London at night, which was awesome, and I highly recommend being able to do that. But when you can only go and explore London for one day, you gotta cram it as much as you can.
You want to see the crowds, that's where the guards are at the moment. That's the eye, that's where you go. That's cool. That's awesome.
Oh, look.
You have that apple on you? Do you have any of that fruit?
Oh, I was going to send you home, but he's expecting some food, so you might eat you.
He's
I feel
looking for
something in your
food.
hand.
He was.
He was.
Did you get it? I missed
Huh?
it.
I did.
On va scanner fort.
Les corails, ils mangent.
Ah ouais? On y va les gars, c'est parti.
Ah ouais, je peux essayer.
Romain.
That was good.
Can I see? Oh, they're so cute. Look at it. I fed peanuts to pigeons and wild parakeets here in the park.
Look, 11:15 begin. Cross St. James Park via the Blue Bridge. Okay, we already did that. Royal Marines Memorial. So, when we were walking the park earlier, I saw through the trees some sand, and I was like, that kind of looks like it could be some kind of horse arena or something. So after we did all our festivities of watching the changing of the guard, we walk by it and we see it's the horse guard parade, and there's people out on horses, something going on, so we're gonna come check it out.
Old guard steady! Old guard! Shoot! Old guard! Carry! Good! Carry! Hold! Guard! Half sections left, head right, about wheel. What march? Ladies and gents on both sides, take a couple of steps back, please.
That was an unexpected treat.
Yeah, that was really cool. So as we were standing there, there was a guy who's giving a private tour to two ladies, and they came up and stood right by me so I could hear some of the stuff that he was talking about. So this is the King's Guard, and so that's the exchanging of the old and the new for the King's Guard. And then they also said that this is like the Admiralty's house, but they're changing it into a five-star hotel. It's like the Admiralty of the Navy. And then he thought that someone showed up because he said that there was the sigil up there, like the flag, and that usually represents that
Somebody's here.
yeah, that somebody's here. So
Hey.
very cool. We got the changing of the guard, and then we got the changing of the King's Guard. Very cool. Scotland Yard were the ones that lead, that follow like in front of and behind the King's Guard and whatnot. But anyway, so cool. And they just walk right. He's like, yeah, stand right. But they came up. He came up behind me with the ladies, and he's like, yeah, stand right here. They're gonna walk right past you. And I'm like, I'm in a good spot then. Very cool. cheese. Pick and choose. Conveyor belt cheese. What'd you get?
I ordered country chicken with barbecue sauce and Kool-Aid slushy.
And you got fries too, right?
And I got fries.
Ash, what'd you get?
I got a bacon cheeseburger with fries and house sauce and a cookies and cream milkshake.
And I got something from Yum Bun. I got the Yum Bun combo with chicken and pork belly buns. And I got gyoza, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yum Bun. We're eating lunch today at Seven Dials Market. It's kind of like an indoor food court area. There's two levels, lower level, and then there's something that they call Cucumber Alley. So it's just outside the doors, but it's all part of Seven Dials Market. Anyway, we got here probably right at noon, looked around for just a minute to see, what there was, went to the bathroom, and then came out. Probably only 5 minutes later, I looked at my watch, it was like 12:05, and that's when people started pouring in. So it is noon on Monday, work day. This place is starting to fill up.
Woo, buddy. Aaron. Yum, dude. Yeah. Look at that. A little taste of home there, buddy.
Whoa. Wow.
Yum Bun.
Yum Bun. Got some gyoza. And I got pork and this chicken. I got that pork belly right there. Look at that. The cucumbers and sauce. Let's try one of these gyozas. That's money.
Guys, mouth invincible.
Ah, nice.
Awesome there. I don't even know how. That's like the softest bun too.
Right through that.
Oh man. God, that's money. That's good.
Yeah. And Josh and Hiram eating their food with the spinning banana back there.
Pork belly, cucumbers, we got some chives in there, barbecue, kind of sweet barbecue over there. I don't even know how I'm gonna start eating this though.
Like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Daddy's sharing his
Last
gyozas
gyoza.
because Hiram loves them.
Hiram loves gyozas.
It really is spicy.
Good, yeah, there's some spice in there, huh?
Okay, so we left Seven Dials Market and caught an Uber. We're going to Tower of London for a 2-hour tour. Hopefully they have the crown jewels out because that would be spectacular to see. I'm just glad that I don't have to be driving through this London traffic.
On you lot, and you come. Let me on my little step here, there we go. Come on guys, just gather in just a little bit. We'll try and keep the noise down a minute. We're going surrounded by it at the moment. Good afternoon, guys. How are we doing? All right? Good afternoon, young fellas. Okay, good to see you. Welcome to His Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, the Tower of London. My name's Tam, and I am a Yeoman warder of His Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, the Tower of London, and a bodyguard of the Sovereign's bodyguard, the Yeoman of the Guard in Extraordinary. Like that, eh? People wonder why we call us beef eaters. What time we got now? I'll say for the next 4 hours I'm going to be your guide, okay? Now together we're going to tour the tower. I'll point out some of the more historic buildings, tell you just a little bit about the tower's 1,000 years of history. Sound right? Yeah. Lovely, right. Before that, let's get to know each other a little bit better. Have we got anybody from the Southern Hemisphere? Yeah, where are you guys from? Ah, welcome home. And from USA? Yeah, I knew I could smell pancakes. Canadians? All right, be no fighting then. Kind of. Oh, don't give it away now. Anybody from Europe?
No, Switzerland.
And lastly, who's here from the United Kingdom then? Yes, ladies, that's in Europe. Just about, with the Swiss. I won't forget, you're all very well. And to allay fears some might have, for the next hour, I'm going to be telling you a few tales. There will be tales of torture. There will definitely be stories about murder. And my specialist and special subject, executions. Now, during our little journey together, when we have the opportunity, I do want to hear a few hearty cheers maybe. Maybe some groans. And if we get that's bad, probably some moans. That's a groan. Right, come on, let's get started. So a story at the tower obviously begins way back on the 14th of October, 1066 to be very precise, when William, the Duke of Normandy, who would later become much better known as William the Well done, defeated the Anglo-Saxon King Harold Godwinson at the Battle of Hastings. Now William's then crowned King William I of England on Christmas Day that year. However, he had to continue to fight his newly conquered subjects, as they didn't take very kindly to this Norman domination, yeah? French. So what does he do? Well, he decides to build a citadel to impress and to overawe the citizens of London. And he chose a site just inside the eastern city wall where once an old Roman fort had stood. And it was here in 1078 that he would then authorise the building of his first royal palace and fortress in England. Today we refer to this as the White Tower. And we'll get a good look at that. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later in our tour. Now, over the next 270 odd years, successive monarchs continued to add to the defences. The inner ballium or defensive wall, containing 13 towers, was completed between the years 1220 and 1260. The outer wall was eventually completed in 1355 and had 7 more towers, and they're all along the south to defend against an attack coming up the river. Now up in this direction, up to the north, we've got 2 huge strong bastions. One's called Brass Mount and one's Legs Mount, which sits in the top corner here. Inside and on top which they mounted cannon to defend the tower against attack from that northerly direction. And in particular, those ferocious Scots like me. Now our third line defence was obviously the moat or ditch. Once filled with water, it goes all the way around the tower. And this was dug during the reign of King Edward I. And he brought in an expert for this, a master vaulter from Holland. Now that moat was some 120 feet wide, and when fully excavated, 15 feet deeper than it is today. And it was designed to use the tidal flow of the River Thames. Twice a day, water would flow into and around the moat and help keep it clean. And this system seemed to work rather well at first, because all the rubbish thrown in, all the excrement, that's poo, young man. The dead animal carcasses from the meat market that was outside, and the occasional dead tourist. But it became the largest cesspit in London and a source of pestilence and disease to those who lived nearby, especially the 1,000 soldiers of the tower's garrison. Now, being the progressive nation we are, this situation then continued for the next 500 years. Until in 1843, the then Constable of the Tower of London, the Duke of Wellington, asked permission for Queen Victoria to have the moat drained. This was granted, and the Duke had it filled in with sand, shingle and rubble up to the height it is today. Now, as I just said, this is the first royal palace and fortress of its kind built in England. And obviously over all these years, it's been used for several different things. The White Tower was a royal residence right up until 1603. The last monarch to officially reside here being King James I. The crown jewels and all that lovely royal regalia have been stored on this site since 1303. The Royal Mint was located within these walls, where all the coins of the realm were produced. And it was also the site of the first ever Royal Observatory, where they studied the stars and planets, till that eventually moved to its current location in Greenwich in 1675. It was even the Royal Menagerie, or zoo, where all the animals given as gifts to our various kings and queens were kept until 1832, when the last of them were sent to Regent's Park to help establish London Zoo. Last, but no means least, this must rank as the most famous prison complex in the world. Now, many of the prisoners held within the various buildings here at the Tower would have been taken outside eventually for onward processing. Some of them ended up just outside the Tower of London, outside on Tower Hill. You may have seen Tower Hill as you arrive today, up that where that busy main road is up there. Up that area there's a place called Trinity Square Gardens. And Trinity Square Gardens was the site of many executions between the 14th and 18th centuries. King Edward IV, for example, he put a permanent scaffold out there in 1465. Such was the frequency of executions at that time up there. And over the years, no less than 125 men of royal or noble birth were to lose their heads on Tower Hill by means of the block and axe. Now, our first victim was Simon of Sudbury, the Archbishop of Canterbury. And he was murdered up there at the hands of peasants. Yeah? All you people. In 1381, for daring to introduce a poll tax. 7 years later, in 1388, the first legal execution on Tower Hill was that of a man named Sir Simon Burley. And by a truly remarkable coincidence, our last ever victim outside there in April 1747 was another Simon. Simon Fraser, the Lord Lovat, an 18-year-old Scottish lord who supported the Second Jacobite Rebellion. Now, in this merry little band we have this afternoon, do you have any gentleman here called Simon? No? No Simons? It's a strange old thing. I do lots and lots of tours, but I never get any Simons on them. I don't know. Oh, well, you bring them back next time, we'll sort them out. Now, just for a moment, guys, let's have a pause. And imagine the sight and scene outside on Tower Hill on a day of execution. Thousands of people, literally thousands, would gather around that raised platform, the scaffold, to witness the proceedings. It was without doubt a proper, good old-fashioned family day out. Yeah, I've no doubt in lovely summer's days, picnic blankets would have been strewn across that grassy knoll out there. The ladies would have had a lovely chilled Prosecco. For the gents, a hearty ale or a nice Guinness would have been in order. For all the kids gathered there, they had bowls of cheesy puff balls and potato chips going round. There was dancers and singers, fire eaters and jugglers. Everyone was having an absolutely fantastic time. Except for one man. Now, our prisoner, having paid his executioner to do a good job, having then delivered his final speech and said his prayers, he would then kneel down and place his neck on a block of solid oak. And when ready, he'd then turn to his executioner and he would give him the given word, or a pre-arranged signal, yeah? The executioner would then bring down that mighty axe, hopefully beheading his victim with one clean stroke. Now, by law and tradition, he would then bend down. He would pick up that severed, still bleeding head and hold it aloft for all to see. Turning to the assembled crowd, he would then proclaim, "Behold, the head of a traitor. So die all traitors. God save the king." And everyone would go absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Right, you lot. We're doing that again. This time, I demand wildness. Got it? But wait for it. Behold! It's a bigger head. Behold the head of a traitor. So now, all traitors, God save the King! Yay! Absolutely pathetic. Now the head would then be impaled onto a soldier's pike. And then it'd be carried through the streets of London towards London Bridge. Right, here we go. This will be quite interesting. After 3, I want you all to point out to me exactly where London Bridge is, okay? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Don't change your minds as well. Do a pull. Bit of debate going on, lovely to see, thank you, good participation. Now, quite a few people went that way. Some people went that way. I saw somebody do this at the back. For clarity, this is Tower Bridge. A magnificent piece of architecture and engineering, I'm sure we'll all agree, yes? Yes. London Bridge is indeed the next bridge up in this direction. And anyone who's seen that bridge will also agree it's absolutely boring. But here's the point. Back then it was the only bridge across the Thames. And so those heads would then be displayed on spikes, sometimes tarred or even boiled, above the entrance into the city as a sign of the fate that awaited all would-be traitors. Meanwhile, the headless corpse would be taken down off that scaffold. It would be placed in a handcart, then brought back into the tower, where it then be quickly buried in an unmarked traitor's grave in the Chapel Royal of St. Peter ad Vincula, which I'll point out to you very shortly. Now, the area we're standing in here, guys, is known as the outer ward of the Tower of London. That's to say between the inner and outer balliums or defensive walls. Now, the inner wall is 50 feet high, and the outer wall behind you is over 28 feet thick. Up in this direction, up to my right, this is Mint Street. So named because it was here until 1810, that all the coins of the realm were designed and produced. Now, the buildings that used to house the mint up there are now known as the casemates, or houses stroke dwellings within the walls. And they're now actually used as accommodation for us Yeoman boarders and our families. Quick hands up, guys, who knew that we lived at the tower then? No, not too bad for a small group, yeah. Who didn't know then? Aha! Who couldn't care less? Right behind us, guys, we've got these 2 archways here. The right hand side, the wider of the archways, that's the Byward Tower there. And under that archway there, you'll see a portcullis, or, as it's also known, a Norman dropgate. It weighs over 1.5 tons, and it dates from the year 1326. And it is actually one of 2 surviving working portcullis we have at the tower, and I'll point the other one out very shortly as well. Now, to the left of that, this is the Byward postern or side gate. It is also known as the Sally Port and Royal Entrance, beyond which there was a small drawbridge that led down to the Queen's Stairs, then directly onto the River Thames. So, rather than travel through the narrow, packed streets of London, royalty and nobility were travelling their lovely, impressive barges along the river. That's a barge. They tie up alongside the stairs out there, and with very little difficulty, they gain access to the tower. Now, the gates just beyond the opening there are the original gates, and they date back well over 700 years. And it was at those very gates that King Henry VIII so lovingly met his second wife-to-be, Anne Boleyn, the mother of Queen Elizabeth I, on the eve of their wedding. And on a bended knee, he promised to love her for the rest of her life. Now, poor Anne was fated to return back here to the tower just 3 years later, for a very different reason and through a very different gate, which I'll show you very shortly as well. Now, in front of us here we've got the bell tower, guys. It gets its name because of the small white belfry that's on the far side. It contains the oldest surviving curfew and alarm bell in the City of London. And when it sounded an alarm, it was a signal for all the gates to be closed, the drop gates lowered, and these battlements then manned for defence. And it is actually still sounded at the end of every day to let all you lovely people know that the tower grounds are now closed. So the bell tower is actually the strongest of the 13 we have on this inner wall. It stands on a solid base of masonry, some 30 feet deep, 20 feet of it below ground and 10 feet above. There are 2 circular chambers inside, with the walls 10 feet thick at the bottom, tapering to 8 feet thick at the top. So as you can imagine, due to its form of construction, quite a few prisoners were held within these walls. The man for all seasons, Sir Thomas More, the one-time Lord Chancellor of England, was held in the lower chamber for refusing to sign the Act of Supremacy, thereby acknowledging King Henry VIII as head of the Church of England. At the same time, and for the very same reason, John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, was held in the upper room, which is also known as the Strong Room. Now, both these men were to suffer terribly, but neither could be persuaded to abandon their religious beliefs, and they were both finally taken out in June and July of 1535 outside up onto Tower Hill for public execution. 400 years later, in 1935, both those men were then canonised as saints of the Roman Catholic faith. Now, another famous prisoner held up in that Strong Room was the young Princess Elizabeth Tudor. Her half-sister, Queen Mary Tudor, had reason to believe that Elizabeth was implicated in the Sir Thomas Wyatt Rebellion of 1554, which was against the Queen's plans to marry King Philip II of Spain. Now, fortunately, Elizabeth was proved innocent, but nonetheless, she was banished for a time to a place called Woodstock Manor. Yet, within a brief space of just 4 years, Elizabeth would return back here to the Tower to prepare for her very own coronation. But it would actually prove to be her last visit here in her long reign of nearly 45 years. Possibly something to do with the fact she had prisoner up in that room there for over 2.5 months, and her mother had been executed here. I think it maybe put her off the tower limit, just a teeny little bit, yeah? Right then, ladies and gents, boys and girls, it is now time for a grim and a grisly tale of execution. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah! James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. Anybody heard of James Scott before? No? Well, James Scott was actually the eldest of the 13, some people do say 14, illegitimate children of King Charles II. However, after the death of his father in 1685, this extremely handsome and very popular young man was persuaded to make his stake and claim to the throne by virtue of the fact that his uncle, King James II, was Roman Catholic. And to press home this claim, he landed with a small army in the west country of England, and then he marched inland, gathering popular Protestant support, and what's now known as the Monmouth or Pitchfork Rebellion. Now, unfortunately for our dashing young hero, his revolt was crushed at the Battle of Sedgemoor on the 6th of July, 1685. That gets a resounding boo! However, the Duke escaped the battlefield! And he made it capture! For just 1 week. He was actually found hiding and cowering in a ditch. Now, condemned to death in his absence, there was no need for a trial. And so just 3 days later, he was led out from the bell tower and taken outside up onto Tower Hill. And it would prove to be the bloodiest execution ever to take place in English history. Now, our execution that fine sunny morning was a man named Jack Ketch, an absolute giant apparently at 6 feet 8 tall. Now, Ketch was a part-time executioner, okay? He was also a part-time butcher, but he was very much a full-time and wholly committed alcoholic. And on this particular morning, he managed to combine that unique skill set to dramatic effect, as he took 5 strokes of the axe to attempt to sever the head from the body. Now, the first blow came crashing down with all his might, but somehow it missed the neck completely, and it went through James Scott's left shoulder, and the blade stuck. And to get the axe back out, Ketch had to put his foot on James Scott's head, and he wrenched that axe back up, splitting bone upwards and spraying the crowd with pink, red, frothy arterial blood. Now, this made James Scott wriggle about just a little, and as the second blow came down, he moved, and the top of his scalp was taken clean off. 3, 5, further blows were attempted, yet still that head remained stubbornly attached to the torso. Now exhausted and panicking, what does Ketch do? He improvises. He takes out his blunt butcher's carving knife, pushes that head back and proceeds to hack and saw the remaining bone, the gristle, the muscle, the tissue, the sinew, until that head was eventually free from the shoulders, ladies and gents. Hey, you paid for this. Now, our story doesn't quite end there. I said earlier the heads would be displayed on London Bridge and the body was brought back here for burial, yes? Yes. Not this time, as both head and body were brought back into the tower before then being sewn back together again and buried 24 hours later. And the reason is, at that time it was thought that no official portrait existed of the Duke. Now, he's the eldest son of a king, and we shall have a portrait. And so a surgeon and an artist were summoned to complete their respective roles before that body was eventually laid to rest. It's true, it's true. I can see a few sceptical looks. So, to prove my point, if you've got a bit of spare time, take a little trip to the National Portrait Gallery in Trafalgar Square. It's free. In there you'll find they possess a portrait of the Duke of Monmouth. And in this portrait, he wears a very high on fashionable collar and looks just a bit bemused, yeah? Just have a look for yourselves, that's all I'm saying, okay? Right, we're going to go around the corner shortly. We're off to Traitor's Gate and the bloody tower! Yeah. But just before we do, I've been practicing a new joke. And for the first time, I feel confident enough to pass it on to this little select band we have here. Are you ready? Yes. Who said no? No problem, right? Okay, this better work. Let's be heading off! Come on, everyone's a winner. Here we are then, we're standing at the most famous, or actually say most infamous gate in the world, Traitor's Gate. It was built on the orders of King Edward I because he required a safer and more useful entrance into the tower. So rather than travel through those narrow twisting streets of London where his convoys might be attacked, his stores get stolen or even prisoners set free, he decides to use the River Thames as a highway. So at high tide, boats could pass through this gate here, then load any cargo in relative safety. Therefore this gate was originally known as the Watergate. Now, where's my new friends from the USA? Come on guys, put your hands up again. Lovely, 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 lovely. Yes, we had it first. Ours didn't leak. Now, having just punched a hole in it out of a defensive wall, the king very quickly realised he'd actually weakened the defences of the premier fortress in the land. So then commanded a tower to be built above the gate to defend it. This tower is now named in honour of a former constable of the Tower of London, St Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was murdered on the steps of Canterbury Cathedral in the year 1170, on the orders, or misinterpreted orders, of King Henry II. So, having just said it's the Watergate, how did it get the name Traitor's Gate? Well, this actually occurred during the Tudor period, due to the large amount of alleged traitors who entered this mighty fortress through these grim gates. Among them no less than 4 Queens of England: Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, the uncrowned Queen of only 9 days, whose stories I'll tell very shortly. Now the young Princess Elizabeth Tudor was also brought up these steps for her incarceration in the Bell Tower. High dignitaries of the church were no exception. Archbishops Cranmer and Bishops Latimer and Ridley, for example. They were brought into the tower during the reign of Queen Mary Tudor, who was also known as Bloody Mary. Now these 3 pious men were then later taken to Oxford, where they were burnt at the stake for heresy. Those, and many poor unfortunate souls, would have travelled down the River Thames on their trials at London's Guildhall or the Palace of Westminster. They would pass through these gates here, then land at these steps, where they were met by the Yeoman jailer and an escort, of extremely handsome yeoman warders. To then be taken to the bloody Tower Archway to the dungeons or cells, there to await whatever fate had in store for them. And for quite a few of them, it actually would have been a short journey back out of the tower to their eventual place of execution. Now behind us, guys, we've got the Wakefield Tower here. Its present name recalls the services of one William de Wakefield, who was King's Clerk to Edward III. So, during that 30-year-long little family squabble, we'll call it, between the Plantagenet houses of York and Lancaster, that we now refer to as the Wars of the Roses, it is recorded and reported by tradition that the deposed Lancastrian king, Henry VI, was murdered in the upper chamber of that tower there on the 21st of May, 1471, being stabbed or bludgeoned to death. Now, Henry VI is also remembered as being the founder of Eton College, Windsor, and King's College, Cambridge. And so each year, on the anniversary of his death, prophets from those two great places of learning come to the tower to lay posies of white lilies for Eton and white roses for Cambridge, each tied with a ribbon in the college colours, and then they're placed on the exact spot where is reputed to have met his death whilst at prayer. And you want to have a look at that spot yourselves, guys. If you take the stairs here to my left, it'll take you into the Medieval Palace exhibition, which is quite good to have a look at as well, and through into the Wakefield Tower, where you'll be able to see that spot for yourselves, okay? Now, immediately adjacent to the Wakefield Tower, we've got the infamous Bloody Tower! Lovely. Actually, it was originally known as the Garden Tower because it overlooked and then gave access to Lieutenant's Gardens. Its name was changed to the Tower of Blood, or Bloody Tower, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, to commemorate the many tragedies that have been enacted within it. But surely the most tragic must be the alleged murders of the two boy princes in 1483. The young, uncrowned King Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, who were aged just 12 and 9, and who were reportedly smothered to death whilst living in the Bloody Tower under the protection of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who, fact number one, had had Edward's coronation postponed on 2 different occasions. Fact 2, then had the two boys declared illegitimate to the throne by birth. And fact 3, he took the throne for himself to become King Richard III. Now, if you remember nothing else about the story I'm going to tell, please try to remember those facts for me. The little bodies were bundled down the stairs that used to lead to the Wakefield Tower, then they were quickly buried under a pile of stones. Shortly after this, they were moved by a priest and reburied in a secret plot under some stairs on the south side of the White Tower. And there they remained undisturbed for 191 years, until workmen, during the reign of King Charles II, discovered the chest in the year 1674. Now, I've no doubt whatsoever, those workmen at that time, with their hearts pounding furiously, would have prized that chest open, hoping to see gold coins, maybe some silver, or even a few precious gems. But instead, they found the remains of 2 small bodies. Now, experts of the day declared they were indeed the missing princes. So on orders of the king, they were eventually moved up to Westminster Abbey, then reinterred in what's now known as Innocents' Corner, where they remain to this very day. It is one of the biggest whodunits of British history, guys. It really, really is, yeah? Much better than anything Agatha Christie could have ever dreamt of, believe me. And personally, I say this a lot. It's worth a bit of your own spare time if you've got such story. Have a look for yourself. Maybe even do some personal research on the subject. Then you can make your own minds up. Who, if anyone, committed all the alleged deeds? I'll say no more on the subject, as it's very, very contentious, believe me. Now, just before we move on again, I said I'd show you our second drop gate. And quite obviously, here it is here within the archway of the Bloody Tower. Now, this particular portcullis here actually weighs over 2.5 tons. Oh. And it dates from the early 16th century. The single flimsy rope that holds it up is also from the early 16th century. One of these days, right, we're going through there now. Come on, let's move quite quickly. Come on, let's go. See, this is why we wear these hats. It's all health and safety. Now standing in the inner ward of the Tower of London, to our front here is William's Norman Keep, the White Tower. Obviously the largest tower within our complex. And as I mentioned earlier, what began in this building in the year 1078, and it actually took well over 20 years to complete, under the direction of a man named Gundulph of Beck, the Bishop of Rochester, who was also an architect and a master builder. Now, I said Gundulph of Beck, okay? Not Gandalf the Grey, right? We'll get confused, right? Now the building stands just over 90 feet tall, and the walls taper in thickness from 15 feet thick at the base to 11 feet thick at the top. On each corner we have turrets, 3 of which are square and 1 is round. If you look at the top of the turrets, you should be able to make out a crown and gold leaf, beneath which is a weather vane that shows the royal standard. And it denotes that the Tower of London is still very much a working royal palace, but obviously no longer a royal residence. But never lose sight of the fact, guys, that all our kings and queens lived here one way or another for well over 500 years. Now, the royal family would have lived mainly on the top floor. The floor below that, they had a banqueting hall there. There was a council chamber, accommodation for knights and the ladies, and the beautiful chapel of St. John the Evangelist, which you can still visit and have a good look round to this day, and recommend you do so if you've got the time. It is an absolute superb 12th century Norman chapel, it really, really is. Now, the next floor down that now has windows was occupied by the servants and retainers. There is another floor, and it is partly below ground level. And in here, quite naturally, stores and provisions were kept. However, other parts of that floor had a far more sinister use, as the dungeon and torture chamber. And it was in here that the rack and other hideous instruments, such as the scavenger's daughter, would have been used on poor, unfortunate victims. It was a dark, evil place, lit only by the small candles of those torturers. No sound of any cries of pain or anguish or pleas for mercy would have been heard through those thick, thick walls. Now today, guys, you can go inside there and you'll find it brightly lit, and very little trace of its former use remains. Yet still it is dark, it's evil, some say even satanic, and gentlemen in particular aspire at the mere thought of pushing through the thick, heavy wooden door, because beyond that door these days, ladies and gents, you will find in there a gift shop. You won't laugh when you see the prices. Now this is the place where all our king and queen lived. So they're taking us show this, where some of them very tragically died. But our short stay here wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention the tower's ravens. Now these large black birds are very popular with the visitors. And the ravens are probably here way before any of the towers were built, nesting in trees, then later took to its turrets. Now over the years, superstition, myth, legend, dating from the time of King Charles II states that if ever the ravens leave the Tower of London, then the White Tower will crumble to dust, and thus our monarchy shall fall. So to ensure this doesn't happen, we're actually mandated with a written and then signed royal decree to maintain an establishment of 6 ravens, and we provide them with a daily ration of healthy food. Now, one of my colleagues is also known as the Raven Master, and he has the responsibility of looking after the birds and their welfare, as well as conducting his other duties. Now, it's the 21st century, and quite clearly, it is a load of superstitious nonsense. However, just to make sure, we got 8 ravens, yes. Right guys, we've got one more little short stop. We're going in that direction now. We're off to Tower Green now, let's go. Okay guys, as I just said, this is our final stop. Here we are on Tower Green, the village green of the Tower of London. My village green is quite nice, isn't it, yeah? Yeah? However, unlike most quintessential English village greens, we've actually got something totally unique on ours, because we very proudly have our own execution site. Da-da-da-da. Now that small paved area there, with that hideous glass coffee table on it, isn't to be confused with the public scaffold I've mentioned up on Tower Hill. You may or may not know that actually only 6 people were officially sanctioned to be executed here by beheading. 3 of them just happened to be Queens of England, and I'll tell these stories in a minute. But before I do, I want to tell you about some of the buildings that are around us here. Now, if you want to find out more about the 2 boy princes story and Sir Walter Raleigh's imprisonment in there for 13 years, you'll find the entrance to the bloody tower straight down there, guys, with the stairs right at the bottom. Definitely worth a look in there if you've got time, yeah? Sweeping round to my right, we've got an L-shaped Tudor building here with a guard outside it. See it, yes? Yes. Now that building there is known as the King's House. It's known as the King's House because it's the King's House. Yes. It is still the official residence of the monarch here at the Tower of London. Now, quite obviously King Charles III doesn't live here, but his representative at this royal palace, the Constable of the Tower of London, he lives there with his family. That's why he has the guard outside it. That's why the guard outside it, yeah, and he gets the same privileges as the king. Now, in the centre here, guys, this building here, this is the Beauchamp Tower. Again, worth a little look in there if you've got a bit of time, especially upstairs. Up there, you find some really ornate carvings in the wall made by some of the prisoners that have been held in there, some of which are over 550 years old. Definitely worth a sneaky peek. To my left here is a magnificent and beautiful Chapel Royal of St Peter and Vincula. I really big it up there, behind the scaffolding obviously. Now this is the final resting place of 3 Queens of England, 2 saints, and approximately 1700 sets of mostly headless remains buried deep within the walls of the chapel's crypt. Ongoing conservation work, but don't let me tell you guys, the chapel is actually open if you can stand the noise. That way through the tunnel and through there. Definitely worth a look there if you've got some time. Behind us, this is the Waterloo block here. Now the Waterloo block now is the home of the Crown Jewels. The entrance point for the Crown Jewels being the door beneath that large golden clock. And as you can see, ladies and gents, if you're not already been in there, there's no queue to get in today, so you'll be able to saunter in and have a good look around when I'm finished. When I'm finished. Nobody leaves. Right, shall we do a few more executions? Sure. Yeah, not literally, obviously, yeah. Now, our first victim here on the 19th of May, 1536, is probably the most famous of all, Queen Anne Boleyn. Now, Anne had been tried and found guilty on trumped-up charges of adultery, incest, and high treason. She was executed not with an axe, but in the French manner of the time, with a 2-handed, double-edged broadsword. Now, Anne's last words on that scaffold that day were, "To God I commend my soul. To Christ I commend my soul. Jesus, receive my soul." Which she said to repeat it over and over and over again. Now, so swift and sure was that French execution with that blow, that as he picked up her severed, still bleeding head, those assembled there that morning gasped in absolute horror. They were so horrified, they felt compelled to gasp a second time, but only much louder. As Anne's eyes were seen to still move in the sockets, and she continued to silently mouth the prayer she was saying. It is absolutely true, guys, it's absolutely true. Various eyewitness accounts did attest to this, yeah? And you'll be delighted to hear there's actually a scientific reason for this, yeah? But that's really boring. And 5 years later, on the 28th of May 1541, the axe fell in the neck of a lady named Margaret Pole, the Countess of Salisbury. Now this dear lady had committed no crime, neither was she afforded the luxury of a trial. She was, however, the mother of Cardinal Reginald Pole, a bitter opponent of King Henry VIII. And it was the Cardinal the King would dearly love to get his hands on. But he was safe in Rome, preaching against Henry. And as Henry couldn't get the son, he therefore took his mother and had her executed here in his place. Now, so quickly was this arranged, there was no time to build that scaffold. They put straw on the ground and a wooden block in the centre. There was no time to summon a normal executioner, and so a young, inexperienced man was found that very morning, and he was told, "Sir, today you shall be our executioner." Yes, you, sir. Yes, you. No, you stay there. Just you get your say. You ready? Are you up for this?
Yeah.
Good. Because this dear 67-year-old lady refused to lay her head on the block. She declared proudly, "It is for traitors, and I am not such." And in protest, she made away from the execution site and she scurried back towards the King's House where she'd been held. Now panicking, what does our executioner do? Well, he gave chase. And when he caught up to Margaret Pole, he swung that axe hard. He hacked and sliced, then he sliced and hacked, until eventually Margaret Pole lay at his feet in a pool of blood. Take a look at that face, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that man now for the rest of your lives. Now then, the following year, on the 12th of February 1554, the action usually fell twice on the same day. At the 30th of February 1542, however, 1542, the action usually fell twice on the same day. This time our victims were Queen Catherine Howard and her lady-in-waiting. Now, Catherine was executed for her associations with other men, both before and during her marriage to Henry VIII. But it was to be her affair with a man named Thomas Culpeper, a gentleman at court, that ultimately proved to be Catherine's undoing. Now on the scaffold that morning, she spoke with the crowd, and she said, "I die today, the Queen of England, but much rather die the wife of the only man I've ever truly loved, Thomas Culpeper." Oh, what a lovely thing to say at such a time, yeah? Culpeper didn't think so. He was at the back like this. No! Now, it may, or possibly won't surprise you to know, that Thomas Culpeper was also executed. He was taken to Tyburn, where Marble Arch is now, way at the end of Oxford Street, where he was hung, drawn and quartered. Now, Catherine's lady-in-waiting, Jane, the Viscountess of Rochford, who incidentally was Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law, was executed immediately after her on the same blood-soaked, sticky, gooey scaffold. And her crime was that she knew of her mistress's adultery but neglected to tell the king. So it would then be another 12 years before the axe fell again at the Tower. This time her victim was a tragic, innocent, 16-year-old, uncrowned queen of only 9 days, Lady Jane Grey. Now, Lady Jane was actually just a pawn in a struggle for power. After the death of her young cousin, King Edward VI, she had been declared queen and placed on the throne by her ambitious relatives. And she ruled in the White Tower for just 9 days until the rightful heir, Mary Tudor, regained the throne by force of arms. Now, Jane and her young husband, the 19-year-old Lord Guildford Dudley, were eventually returned back to the Tower under sentence of death after their trials for treason at London's Guildhall. Jane was imprisoned in the Gentleman Jailers' House, number 5 Tower Green, which, if you look in that direction over there, is where that second green door down now stands. However, suffice to say, guys, the building that stood there back in Tudor times was very different to the Georgian one we have now. But nonetheless, it's recorded that she watched from a window as her husband was taken from the Beauchamp Tower. He was taken outside up onto Tower Hill for public execution. She would almost have certainly had the thousands gathered there that day cheering as his head was dispatched from his body. And she said to watched and witnessed as his headless, lifeless corpse was returned in a handcart for burial in this chapel. And if all that wasn't enough for any 16-year-old girl to get in, she would have no doubt seen carpenters prepare a scaffold, ready for her own execution later that same day, the 12th of February 1554. Now, my personal and humble opinion, guys, it is possibly one of the most tragic days in British history. It really, really is. Now, if you've all been paying attention to me, and I know you have, yes? Yeah. You've all no doubt worked out for yourselves that all my victims so far have all been ladies. We're changing that now, because in the year 1601, the axe fell in the neck of one Robert Devereux, 2nd Earl of Essex, a very good friend and a close confidant of Queen Elizabeth I. And Robert Devereux had been entrusted to take an army to Ireland to quell a rebellion. But instead of doing this, Devereux brokers a truce against the Queen and the Privy Council's explicit order. Worse, Robert Devereux came back to England, again defying the Queen's orders. Now, fearing for his own safety, Robert Devereux hatched a plot to kidnap Queen Elizabeth I and then take the throne for himself. But he found very little support for this treacherous idea, and Robert Devereux paid the ultimate price for failure here on Tower Green on the 25th of February 1601. Now, somewhat ironically, our executioner this day was a man named Thomas Derrick. Now, Thomas Derrick had been serving life in prison for various heinous crimes, but he'd been issued a pardon. He was given a pardon on provision he becomes a state executioner, yes? And the man that gave him that pardon was one Robert Devereux, the second Earl of Essex, ladies and gents. It is absolutely true, absolutely true. You couldn't make it up, although we do try sometimes. Unfortunately, guys, I'm all out of executions now. I know. They give me 2 or 3 more minutes of your precious time. I'll tell you just a little bit more about us Yeoman warders, yes? Now, ever since the White Tower was completed in 1100, people have watched and warded over the buildings here and its prisoners. These were the first ever Yeoman warders. And if you see some of my colleagues around here today, you'd think they'd been here since the year 1100. Now, we get to 1549, and a man named Edward Seymour, the first Duke of Somerset's his title. He's spending the first of his 2 incarcerations at the Tower, yeah? By the way, his second time here didn't end very well. He now lived under Chapel's altar minus a head. But on this occasion, on his release, he had an audience with the King, King Edward VI. And at this audience he said to the King, "Your Majesty, the Yeoman warders at the Tower of London are absolutely brilliant at what they do. Could you possibly please bestow an honour upon them?" And the King agreed. He agreed to make the Yeoman warders part of his personal bodyguard in extraordinaire. And ever since then, all Yeoman warders are sworn in at St James's Palace as the King or Queen's bodyguards in extraordinaire. It's obviously a ceremonial role these days, but in doing so we do actually become members of the royal household, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, yeah. There's no need to bow our courtesy for that. Now, here's a tiny bit of bad news. On the 29th of December 1826, the Duke of Wellington, one of our most famous generals, is appointed to the role of constable at the Tower of London. And shortly after this, he pays us a little visit, and he's not impressed by what he sees. He sees the Yeoman warders as lazy, dodgy, drunken layabouts, some of which would actually sell their positions on to different people, totally illegally, or even sublet their jobs out here to go and work elsewhere. So the Duke of Wellington decides from that point on that only gallant, deserving and notorious ex-sergeants of the British Army shall become Yeoman warders. Now, the first of these is a man named John May from the Grenadier Guards in June 1827. And ever since then, all Yeoman warders have been selected from the British Armed Forces and numbered sequentially. We've now reached number 428. I am Yeoman warder of Beefeater 414. So, thank you. So, to become a Yeoman warder now, you must have served a minimum at least 22 years in the British Armed Forces. You must be the highest non-commissioned rank, a warrant officer class 1, that's just like a sergeant major, yeah? And having been awarded the Long Service and Good Conduct Medal, otherwise known as the Undetected Crime Medal. I maybe mentioned earlier, 35 of us at the Tower here. We got 19 from the Army. They're easy enough to spot as you're wandering, guys, because they'll be stood in corners looking dazed and confused. You got 3 from the Royal Navy. Nobody talks to them. We got 4 big tough Royal Marine commandos. Yeah, can't be separated. Always in a little group together, holding hands, skipping along and singing nursery rhymes. And then there's 9 intelligent people from the Royal Air Force. Yeah. 4 officers from the RAF Regiment, which I had the honour, pleasure and privilege of serving for 35 years. Now, 2 things we always get asked, guys. 1, where are the toilets? Now, if you look behind you, cast your eyes to the end of the Waterloo block, you see the set of stairs? Yeah. Head in that direction, take a left before the stairs, go round the back of the building. On the right hand side, you'll see all the facilities you need and desire. Got it? Yes. Don't ask my colleagues again, they'll get upset. 2, how did you get the nickname Beefeaters? It's a good question, isn't it? Yeah? Do you want a good answer? Yes. Do you want a good answer?
Yes.
We don't know. Right, there you go. I'm the archivist for the Yeoman warders, and I can tell you now, I've looked absolutely everywhere for an answer. There's nothing etched on stone tablets. There's no scriptures or scrolls with it. There's definitely no emails floating around, and there's nothing on TikTok either. I'm all over that. And say how, why, where, when we get the nickname Beefeaters. Now there's lots and lots and lots of theories. The two most popular are, one, we got paid either partially or fully with meat or beef at one stage, yeah? Or we got to eat beef or meat from the king's table. We were his bodyguard. Again, plausible, but nothing's written down anywhere that we can find. So, if I'm inspired any of this afternoon, and you do a bit of research on this subject, and you happen to stumble across an answer, please let us know, guys. We're nearly there. Now, I've only scratched the surface of the tower's history. As you go around and do your own wandering around, please have a good look around at what time you got available. Ask some of my colleagues here as many questions you brought. They'll love and balloon questions, you know. Do your thing and do that and enjoy your time at the tower. If you've enjoyed it so far, if you're apt to go on TripAdvisor occasionally and put a nice comment on there, Remember, my name's Tam, yes? If, however, you hated it, and it's been awful, my name's Steve. Guys, I've enjoyed myself. It's been quite a small group this afternoon, but I've actually loved my time here. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Lovely, guys. Enjoy yourself.
It wasn't really a tour. A lot of history with one of the yeoman warders. One of the yeoman warders. Walked us to a couple spots, but just went through a lot of different history in the 1,000 years of this castle, which was, anyway, he was awesome. His name is Tom. He's a Scot, and he's a good storyteller.
Who said that?
I watched the Rangers second half. Very good. Wasn't it? Good, man. Especially after being 3-0 down.
I think we need to do a ceremony.
There's a soldier thing.
Let's go! Turn up!
Can I sit down?
Escort to the one. Turn. Out! Escort to the one. We'll move to the right of Tolliver Briggs. Right. Turn! Escort to the one. By the number. Quick. March!
So let's have a look, think, why in 1876 would we not smile when we were having something done of a portraiture?
Because you had to be there for a long time.
Right, sir. 2 weeks to get a portrait done. I'm not going to smile for 2 weeks.
That'd be exhausting.
That's why, if you look around, there's no smiles in any portraits. Have you never thought about that?
Yeah.
Nah, you just look and move on, don't you? Some old dude, I understand. Just move on. Where you from, my
I don't
friend?
think about the logistics.
Do you
of,
not?
I don't want to smile the whole time.
Yeah, we've got these instant things, haven't you? We didn't have those back in the day. So where are you from?
Utah.
Ah, the Americas, I understand.
Yeah.
Very nice.
The
Colonies.
New World. Colonies.
Colonies, yes. And is it your first visit to London?
Ours, not his.
Been before, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And welcome to London.
Thank
Do you
you.
like it?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
And what do you like about
I
London?
do. Other sides and everyone's super nice.
Everybody's super nice. That's because everybody should be, shouldn't they? The whole world should be together, shouldn't we? Saying hello and welcoming one another.
True story.
True, very true, sir. Which is why I fought many battles, to try and make peace. That's why I've got this. You know what this is? You know what it is?
Looks like a fleece. Is it a
The
fleece?
golden fleece.
This is the golden fleece. Only 16 of them have survive or are around, and I'm one of the people that have them. Do you know why we have the golden fleece? So every country, one person in the country has a golden fleece, so I have it for the United Kingdom. And all the other countries who have a golden fleece must not fight one another. I think in your times, what are you, 2000 and something, are you? The future? A thing called NATO, have you heard of it? Where the NATO countries do not fight one another, they are friends. And that's what we try to do too, back in 1826. Make friends.
There you go.
Not fight everybody. No comment, no comment. Thank goodness I'm not in the future, huh? Yes.
Yes. Well,
I'm gonna go there, that's for sure. So, have you been here long? Been in London for long? You staying for long?
No, just a day and a half.
Here for the
Day and a half? Is that all you're staying for? Just a day and a half?
Yeah.
Whistle tour. Where are you off to
No.
next?
York. Yeah.
What a beautiful, a lovely train. Do you like trains, sir? Steam trains. Yeah, you know what they are, don't you? Just double check. There's a beautiful steam train museum in York.
Okay.
Beautiful. There's also a thing called the Jorvik Viking Centre, which is exceptionally good. I would recommend doing that too.
Okay.
If you're into Vikings,
Yeah.
which is always good.
We'll go back in that history.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
yes.
that is what I love about
That's your
walking
area,
around
is it?
London.
We are
Well,
heading to
just walking
Iceland
around
later.
London
And Iceland, well there we are then. There you go.
See their homeland.
We're gonna
We
get
need
a
more
little
Jorvik
bit
than that, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes. No, I love the mixture of you can turn and see a modern building, and then I mean like right there, and then behind you.
Exactly. So you know, obviously you know. Oh, okay, that's Tower Bridge. If you look at the Shard, you heard of the Shard? It's our tallest building in London. It isn't the tallest part to look from London, strangely. The tallest part is on the other side of the water. So yeah, but the building itself is higher.
It's high. Yeah.
So they get that accolade.
Give 'em that.
Being
We'll
the
give 'em that
tallest
one,
building.
yeah.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly. Well, have a lovely journey. To
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you getting yourselves there? You driving?
Yeah.
We're driving.
Driving.
Yes.
Do you like it on the wrong side?
Yeah.
You
no,
okay
it's
with it?
fine. Oh yeah.
Wrong side.
We've been driving now for over a week.
admitted
Have
it,
you?
It's the wrong side.
the
The wrong side. Yeah.
Everywhere in
He said
everywhere
it.
in Europe is the same side as us.
Right.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Until you go over to America, then
I
they
know.
swap it over.
Yeah.
Just
Because we
going
had
on.
to be different, you know. We
Had to
fought
do
for
everything
that,
different.
Did
so-
you? You fought for the side of the road.
Yes. That's
what
what
it-
it came down to.
That's what it feels like.
Honestly,
Yes.
some of the things you want to fight for. No, you don't need that.
Apparently, that ended up being an outcome. I don't
Did it?
know.
I know.
Yeah.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Wonderful.
Well, have a wonderful journey.
Thank you.
Safe journeys.
Thank
and
you.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Okay, now what are we doing, Ash? What did we do and where are we
Tower
at
of
now?
London River Tour. So we did the Tower of London, and we were there for like 2 hours, but you could very easily spend half a day there.
Hiram.
You could easily spend half a day at the Tower of London. We don't have that time, unfortunately. So we saw what we could, and now we are going to do a Tower of London river tour. And it's about an hour long along the River Thames.
Is this the last time I can see you in a while? Is it the truth that you'll be living tonight? We should take a walk then and swim in the sea.
I got apple juice.
What'd I get?
You got Coke.
And the mommy's back there. I don't know why she's so far away.
Waiting and missing. I never thought you would leave me here. We can get out of this one. A tunnel of feelings. And just like we got through everything else. But I see you, honey. This is in no way funny. We will find our way back together. But right now, there's stormy weather. I see a tear begins to fall from your eyes. It is the truth that you'll be leaving tonight. I will be there with you, even when you are alone. And I'll be waiting here when you come home. Can we get out of this one? Waiting and missing. I never thought you would leave me here.
In the cupboard under the stairs at West Hindlip before being taken to St Mary's Church, where he was buried alongside his family in the village.
You look more comfortable than me sitting in here.
But I see you, honey. This is in no way funny. We will find our way back together. But right now, there's stormy weather. Can we get out of this just like we got through everything else. But I see you, honey. This is in no way funny. We will find our way back together. But right now, there's stormy weather. But right now, there's stormy weather.
Hi guys, what are we doing now?
Now we're catching an Uber back to our place so that we can get all cleaned up and changed so we can go to Phantom of the Opera at His Majesty's Theatre. Yes!
Excited? What are we doing now?
Yes. Now we're at His Majesty's Theatre and we're going to see the Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, we're going that way. Into the stalls.
What?
Into the stalls. That's where we're going. You guys look lost. Go.
We're going to see the Phantom of the Opera at His Majesty's Theatre. And while we're waiting for the doors to open, we're having a little snack.
Some ice creams and a Coke.
And I'm looking at the playbill.
What'd you get?
I got a shirt.
And a program.
We have to get, I mean, obviously you have a shirt with the classic name logo, but when you're in London,
Okay, how was it? So much fun?
yeah.